I know that the location change is kind of crazy. I'm not in my usual setup. I know it looks like I'm about to film a porno or something behind me. Anyway, jokes aside, welcome back to the channel. If you're not a subscriber, then simply welcome to the channel. Hopefully we can make a subscriber out of you yet. Today we have a shorter video about a brand that a lot of people are liking nowadays, a brand that I've liked personally for a while, which is Our Legacy. Today in this video we're going to pretty much go over what Our Legacy has done right to sort of come up out the mud, quote unquote, and to sort of inject itself into the mainstream right now. A few of their products have been popping off recently in the last few years, and they've transitioned from something of a graphic or streetwear based brand to a modern, more like quiet, luxurious menswear fused with that streetwear aesthetic. So Our Legacy's been in the social media space and sort of all over the internet for a hot minute now, and I think it's for all the right reasons. I've actually picked up a couple things myself from Our Legacy, and I've definitely not been disappointed yet. A few of their products specifically have been popping off and sort of like doing the rounds. You might think of Our Legacy camion boots as like one of their more popular items. Being a footwear item, a lot of people are gravitating towards that. It's something a bit more versatile, it's smart, but you can sort of like dress it down. Very lovely boot. Then we have the third cut denim. And of course these are not all the products that are like doing the rounds. They've got a lot of good products out that people like, but specifically these two things I think people are sort of like hyping up or gravitating towards. A lot of people are picking them up. The third cut denim has like this trompe-l'oeil iteration that's been doing the rounds. It looks like a distressed pair of jeans on, of course, a brand new product. But they've also got some more like regular colorways of the third cut denim. And I think the shape of the denim in between like a sort of boxy straight leg and like wide trouser sort of fit is appealing to a lot of people. But to get that in a pair of denim, I'm not saying it's unique, but I think they've put their own sort of like touch on that sort of concept. And I'm gravitating towards it slowly but surely. I am looking to pick up a pair of those as well as a couple other products from Our Legacy. I'll start by talking about one of my favorite items I've got from them as of yet. Many of you have probably already seen in my last few videos that I copped the box boucle shirt. Boucle is just a great material for summertime. It's very breezy. It's just something easy to throw on and wear. You kind of look like dressed up a little bit, but also you can kind of wear it in like a casual way with shorts or whatever. There's nothing crazy going on, and I think that's kind of what I like about it. It gives you a little bit of extra texture if you do want to layer it in another outfit with like a jacket on top or whatever. I tend to dress in monochromatic or all black outfits kind of often, so adding that texture is a really nice touch to something that would be more like, I guess, considered plain or simple or whatever. But in addition to that, I feel like the attention to detail with the construction, the way the fabric flows when I move, the way it kind of drapes instead of hangs. Even though these things are sort of expected when you start paying a little bit more money for clothes, you'd be surprised how often a brand that has expensive stuff doesn't actually take the time to do what Our Legacy does. A lot of times I've bought something that's been more expensive, but I kind of just felt like I paid for like a logo or a name, and they didn't take the time to actually think like, hey, is this going to be wearable in the future? Now, by all means, I'm not saying that they broke any new ground here. I think that they're just sort of approaching it conceptually in a better way. They're comfortably out of the fast fashion sort of spectrum. They're nowhere near that, but they're not necessarily high end. I think they're comfortably like kind of straddling that line to where they're almost high end. They do a lot of things well. They have a lot of good fabrics. And although this boucle is not like a Margiela or like a Hermes quality boucle, I wouldn't expect that because it's nowhere near that price point. And I don't think it'll get much better. The only thing that they could possibly improve on is maybe making it out of an all natural material. But then again, that doesn't necessarily mean the quality is going to be better. For what you're paying, I think you're going to get exactly what you should get, and which is exactly what Our Legacy is, which is pretty much like a high mid-tier brand. And by no means do I mean it's mid as in it's underperforming or it's like lame or anything like that, honestly. Quite the opposite. Things that they're doing the sort of mid-level consumer price index on purpose. And while I'm sure they probably could upscale it and make more premium stuff, as a matter of fact, they do have more premium products available, but I think their sort of appeal is in that mid-tier. The mid-tier is becoming a lot more popular nowadays as prices begin to rise on everything. I mean, luxury is ridiculous right now, so people are dialing back. And on top of that, no one necessarily wants to be stuck in that older streetwear aesthetic, which was a lot cheaper. But I think a lot of people who were into that style are growing up now. And I think Gen Z, or like the younger crowd, anywhere from like 16 to like 19 years old, or even like early 20s, I think that they're kind of just doing a little bit their own thing while kind of sticking to a few trends. Maybe this could be a whole nother video, but to me personally, I feel like their trends are not as strong as our trends. I mean, even though they're technically my generation, I'm the older end of Generation Z. I feel like the trends like 10 years ago definitely kind of stuck around longer, and that's because of the rise of micro trends, like things kind of just pop in and out of style. One notable thing that they're doing that's kind of stuck for a minute is the Adidas Samba, and an honorable mention maybe the baggy pant look, or the flared or like super wide pants. And by all means, our legacy hits on all those notes, but it still kind of comes off as a bit more conservative, while they're paying attention to conceptually what a higher end brand would be, experimenting with more like cuts or crops or whatever you want to call them. I'll just say they're experimenting with like more unique shapes than like a lower tier brand. They're still not going so far as to make everything so unobtainable. I think our legacy is about where luxury brands used to be as far as price point, and I think they're more affordable, and I think more people are going to be a little bit more enthused about buying something that still says, hey, this is better, more expensive, more like unique, and more, exclusive than something you would get from like a Supreme drop, or maybe like Zara, H&M, or something like that. But at the exact same time, it's not like $4,000 for a jacket. Even though they have expensive things, it kind of makes sense, like leather. You're only gonna get something so cheap when you're going like into the leather world, and if you pay too cheap of a price, I want to say you're gonna get crap leather. It's almost like you just need to completely avoid that and go for the more expensive one, just save up and get it, or just maybe not go for leather or go vintage or something like that. So you don't want to be in that weird area, and our legacy definitely has like nicer premium leathers and whatnot, but again, they're comfortably in that like high mid-tier range. Their prices make sense. Their stuff is actually pretty good quality. It's rivaling higher end stuff, but of course you're gonna have to use a little bit more synthetic material and whatnot to sort of keep up with the look and the quality, while offering a like lower or like more attainable price point, which is good. And I think that's capturing a lot of people's attention. A few things of note, or a few pieces of note that I can mention that have caught my attention recently, is the wool mini jacket. I love it. It's cropped. It has like, I guess, a slightly extended arm. Maybe that's just how the models look. My arms are short, so the arm's gonna look super extended on me regardless. But yeah, it's made of 100% wool, which is the natural material I was talking about, and I believe it has a double zip. I just really like the way it looks, and I think that I can probably rock that this fall/winter. So that's definitely on my list. If I get anything this fall or winter, whatever, it'll probably be that. If I had to make another honorable mention, I would say those third cut jeans, but since those are so hyped, along with the camion boots, I'd probably say like I don't really need to talk about those too much. But what I will touch on real quick with the camion boots is that they do have a couple of things that I like. I already mentioned the sort of like dress up, dress down approach that you can take with it. But I also like that they're sort of putting in a bit of their brand motifs, like that little tiny silver or like metal. I'm pretty sure it's not real silver, but that metal clip. is it a clip? Is it just like a little tab? I don't really know. I don't have any products that feature that, but I will eventually. So they have like the small motifs that give it that sort of heritage brand feel. They're starting to develop their identity, and I mentioned in another video how they kind of came up from doing streetwear graphics to kind of evolving and getting more into the more like, I don't want to say high-end look, but let's just say for right now, a more high-end look, more conservative or minimalist look, while they still have their graphics and whatnot. I think the bulk of it now is that like base layer or like uniform sort of look. And as we get into the more post-sneaker world, or the post-sneaker era of fashion, boots, loafers, and mules are kind of like taking over. I think that uniform look is actually kind of not coming into being. It's already been around, but I think it's going to get more and more popular. That might be our decade-defining look right there. Something conservative, a little bit more toned down, but like paying more attention to shapes while still expressing individuality. And I think that there are other ways besides a graphic tee to express that. Again, our legacy is kind of hitting those like boxes, if you will. So I also want to touch back on that adaptation that I was sort of mentioning earlier. Again, I mentioned that they were more like a streetwear focused brand. They had stussy collabs, they still do. And they still do put out graphics, but I think, like I said, we're moving kind of away from that as a whole. Graphics are around, but I see so many people gravitating towards vintage or gravitating towards like just a bit more of like a minimalistic or clean graphic if they're going to wear a graphic at all. A lot of people are just rocking plain Jane tees. Something that you couldn't catch on anyone in 2017, 2016, or 15, even back to 2013. But like slowly but surely, like post-pandemic, we're like moving away from those overly like eye-catching sort of pieces, I guess. The flex culture is still there, but I think people have matured their flex, and their flex is a bit more updated to today's sensibilities. Now, I've mentioned this before, but historically when you get into like an economic recession, or if there's some sort of like hard reset on society, like a Great Depression, a pandemic, or any type of like economic downturn, people tend to start like buying less of the flashy pieces unless it's like a really nice like coat or like sensible purchase that can be a statement piece but isn't like full of monograms and logos. That was the case many years ago. I think we're just repeating because fashion does happen in a cycle. We're moving back towards like maybe it's a Burberry coat, but the tartan print is on the inside of the coat. You won't be able to tell unless I open the coat up, and then that's the flex. And then even then, it may not even be in that like red, gray, black pattern. It may just be black and white, black, white, gray, all that stuff. The subtle flex, like the art of like subtly saying I'm flexing but I'm not flexing, is definitely in now. And I think that our legacy had to adapt to sort of fit that new sensibility. A lot of brands are doing that, except for a few. I mean, you have your streetwear brands like Stray Rats, Supreme, Bathing Ape and stuff like that. They're kind of traditional streetwear more so. And have your opinions on all those brands. I certainly have mine. But even though I do enjoy some stuff from those brands, I find myself more gravitating towards like, as far as stuff I'll actually buy, gravitating towards more like homeware, decorations, maybe like small accessories from brands like that, like Supreme and whatnot. Even though I've always been a person who liked like the small Supreme box logos and stuff like that, I've always been a bit more minimal. I do feel a need for a statement piece, so maybe I will try and look into other brands for those statement items. But again, I think it's much more the case that we're trying to get a little bit away from, Louis Vuitton monograms and like crazy logos, and more into that more subtle flex. And on top of that, a lot of us are just getting older. We kind of just fall out of favor. Those types of brands fall out of our favor as we get older. But for a brand to go from, printing graphics to doing like a 180 and doing like all the crop jackets and leather and like nice denim and boots, it's actually more difficult than people would realize, even though it seems like it was easy. I bet you don't know like all the stuff that went into them like actually having to do that. and no one talks about that, but that's actually an amazing thing that they did. And I think it's more amazing because they're not a huge brand. They started off like more recently, I think in the 2010s or 2000s or 2010s. They're not like a heritage brand, so it actually probably took a lot for them to like, I'm not even gonna say probably, I'm sure it took a lot for them to like not switch courses, but like plan out this new direction, stick to it, and then do it well. There's a lot of stuff that goes into a brand that I'm just not going to mention right now because I'm trying to make this video a bit shorter than normal. But yeah, overall, we're going into like a new sort of like fashion zeitgeist, I think. It's been coming for a long time, and it's been subtly changing. I think it's like full-fledged now, and I think brands like Our Legacy are leading us into that sort of new era or like new wave of fashion. And if they're not leading us, then they're definitely taking a big part in that, or they're following suit pretty well. Again, adaptation and like struggle and all that stuff aside, they also just put out some pretty banger products, and that's what you can't ignore. But yeah, how do you guys feel about what I said? How do you guys feel about some of the pieces that they've put out recently? Is there anything that you're looking for, you know, exactly specifically for yourself, or are you going to pretty much ignore that? What is your style like? Are you gravitating towards that new stuff I'm talking about, or are you going backwards, not regressing, but kind of looking into the archives, and maybe you're trying to distinguish yourself by wearing Bape and Loud logos and crazy stuff like that, because everyone's kind of assimilating, as you may see. I mean, either side is valid. I mean, as long as you look good, you look good. It is what it is. But yeah, again, welcome back to the channel. If you're not a subscriber, simply welcome to the channel. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell notification because you won't get notified otherwise, which sucks. I don't know why they do that, but it is what it is. Yeah, you guys have a great day, and until next time.